Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that there is a hidden eye, not of flesh and blood but of light and perception, resting between your brows. An eye that sees not the world of form, but the world behind form. An eye that does not look outward, but inward, into the very fabric of reality itself. This is the third eye, the mystical inner sight that sages, shamans, and seers across cultures have spoken of for thousands of years. But here's the truth. Most of what people believe about the third eye is a shadow of its real meaning. It is not simply a tool for psychic visions or supernatural powers. It is something far more profound, far more transformative. The awakening of the third eye has been described as the moment a human being steps beyond illusion, the moment when the veil is lifted, and one perceives reality as it truly is. Ancient texts speak of it as the seat of the soul, the gateway to enlightenment, the bridge between the finite and the infinite. And yet, in the modern age, its meaning has been reduced to a cliché, something tossed around in spiritual circles without truly being understood. So in this journey, we will go deeper, much deeper. We will explore where the idea of the third eye comes from, and why it has been revered from Egypt to India, from the mystery schools of the ancients to the mystics of the East. We will uncover the hidden symbolism encoded in art, scripture, and secret teachings. And most importantly, we will begin to understand what it really means to awaken this inner eye, not as a metaphor, but as a living, breathing transformation of consciousness. Because the third eye is not just about seeing visions, it is about perceiving truth. And the real question is, are you ready to see beyond the surface of things? Are you prepared to glimpse the architecture of reality itself? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, we will unravel the forgotten meaning of the third eye, and why its awakening is perhaps the most important step you can ever take on your spiritual path. The idea of the third eye is not confined to one culture, one religion, or one fragment of history. Instead, it appears again and again, like a thread woven through the tapestry of human spirituality, sometimes hidden in symbols, other times openly declared as sacred truth. In ancient Egypt, the third eye was symbolized by the Eye of Horus, a mystical emblem representing protection, wisdom, and divine vision. Priests and initiates in the temples of Karnak and Luxor knew the eye not simply as a symbol, but as a gateway to higher states of consciousness. The Egyptians believed that by awakening this inner sight, one could transcend the illusions of the physical world and commune directly with the gods. The Eye of Horus was often drawn over the pineal gland's location in the brain, hinting at a knowledge both mystical and biological. Moving eastward, in India, the third eye became central to the yogic and tantric traditions. Known as the Ajna Chakra, it was considered the seat of intuition, the point through which the soul perceives divine reality. Ancient yogis described its awakening as the blossoming of a lotus with two petals, unfolding in luminous light. It was said that when the third eye is open, illusions fall away, karma becomes visible, and the seeker begins to live in direct communion with universal consciousness. In China, Taoist mystics spoke of the celestial eye, or the eye of the spirit, cultivated through breathwork, meditation, and inner alchemy. The Taoists believed that by refining the life force within the body, one could activate this hidden eye and perceive the subtle flows of qi, the invisible energy currents animating the universe. Even in the Western esoteric tradition, echoes of the third eye abound. The philosophers of Greece hinted at an inner vision beyond ordinary sight. Plato, in his dialogue The Republic, spoke of the eye of the soul, which must be turned away from the shadows of the cave and toward the light of truth. The Christian mystics, too, described an eye of the heart, through which divine presence is perceived. But perhaps most fascinating is how the third eye has been deliberately obscured over time. In many traditions, its teachings were reserved for initiates, those who had undergone preparation and discipline. Why? Because to awaken this eye is not a casual curiosity. It is a profound shift of perception, one that can destabilize those unready to face the truth beyond appearances. To glimpse reality without filters is both liberating and terrifying. And so the third eye became hidden, buried in symbolism, disguised in myth, encoded in art and architecture. From the spiral motifs on ancient temples to the mandalas of Buddhist monks, the signs are everywhere if we know how to look. The esoteric significance is clear. The third eye is not about physical sight, but inner illumination. It is the doorway between the human and the divine, the material and the eternal. To awaken it is to move beyond the narrow confines of ordinary perception and step into the vastness of truth itself. This is why the third eye has been revered, feared, and protected across the ages. It is not just a symbol of higher vision, it is the very mechanism through which we awaken to who we truly are. To truly understand the awakening of the third eye, we must look beyond the cliches and superficial descriptions. The third eye is not just about seeing visions or gaining mystical powers. It is a complete shift in perception, a radical expansion of awareness that alters how we experience reality itself. The third eye is often associated with the pineal gland, a tiny endocrine gland deep within the brain, shaped like a pine cone. For centuries, this gland has puzzled scientists. It produces melatonin, regulating our sleep and circadian rhythms, but mystics have long claimed it does far more. René Descartes famously called it the seat of the soul, suggesting it was the bridge between the physical body and consciousness. The ancients may have understood this, encoding the pine cone symbol in sacred architecture, from Egyptian carvings to the pine cone court of the Vatican. But let's go deeper. The awakening of the third eye is not just biological, it is energetic. In esoteric traditions, the third eye corresponds to the Ajna chakra, the command center of subtle perception. When dormant, our perception is filtered through the five senses, which show only fragments of reality. But when the third eye awakens, perception expands. One begins to sense patterns, synchronicities, and unseen connections between events. Intuition sharpens. Dreams become gateways rather than fantasies. Reality itself starts to feel less like a rigid wall and more like a living, fluid tapestry. Think of it this way. Imagine you've lived your entire life inside a theater, watching a movie projected on a screen. You think the movie is all that exists. Then one day someone shows you the projector, the source behind the images. Awakening the third eye is like turning your gaze away from the surface of life toward its hidden source. The tablets of Hermeticism, yogic scriptures, and Taoist manuals all agree. This awakening is about seeing beyond illusion. In Sanskrit, illusion is called Maya, the great veil that convinces us the temporary is permanent, the external is ultimate, and the self is limited. The third eye shatters Maya by giving us direct experience of truth. Yet, it's not just about mystical insight. The awakening also reveals our hidden potential. Through the third eye, one begins to perceive how thought shapes reality. Every emotion, every idea, every intention radiates subtle energy, influencing the world around us. This is why mystics often describe the third eye as a tool of creation. By learning to focus thought through it, one can alter the flow of energy, not to control the world, but to align with its deeper currents. But awakening the third eye is not automatic, nor is it always pleasant. At first, it can feel destabilizing. Old beliefs crumble. The comforting illusions of the world fade. It is like stepping into a bright light after living in a dimly lit room. The brilliance can be overwhelming. Many traditions therefore warned against forcing its awakening through reckless practices. Without grounding, the seeker may fall into confusion, delusion, or obsession with visions. This is why the ancients taught that third eye awakening requires balance. It must be guided by wisdom, humility, and inner purity. The true purpose is not to gain exotic powers, but to awaken to truth, and truth requires responsibility. So, when we speak of the real meaning of third eye awakening, we must strip away the sensationalism. It is not about magic tricks or fortune-telling. It is about entering a higher order of perception, where the boundaries between self and cosmos dissolve, where the hidden architecture of reality becomes visible, and where life itself is revealed as a living mystery. And yet, this is only the beginning, because once the third eye opens, new questions arise. What exactly are we seeing? Are the visions symbolic, literal, or both? What realms of existence does this inner sight reveal? And why have so many traditions warned that knowledge can be both liberating and dangerous? When the third eye awakens, it is not just a matter of gaining extra vision. It is the collapse of a wall you didn't even realize was there, the barrier between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between appearance and essence. But what exactly does this inner sight reveal, and why is it spoken of with such reverence and caution by sages throughout time? One of the first revelations is that reality is layered. What we see with the physical eyes is only the most superficial stratum. Through the third eye, seekers describe perceiving subtle energies, patterns of light, and vibrations that interconnect all things. A tree no longer appears as just wood and leaves, but as a radiant web of life force, pulsing with energy. A human being is not just flesh and bone, but an aura of colors, thoughts, and emotions in constant motion. And yet, these perceptions are not always literal. The third eye often speaks in symbols and archetypes. Mystics across cultures report visions of serpents, lotuses, mandalas, or celestial beings. Are these hallucinations? Or are they the language of consciousness itself? Visual metaphors by which the mind translates dimensions beyond words. This is where paradox enters. The third eye reveals truths, but not always informs the rational mind can neatly decode. There is also the profound realization of interconnectedness. The awakened eye perceives that no event is isolated, no thought without echo. Synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences Jung described, become daily reminders that the universe is not random, but orchestrated by unseen harmonies. What once felt like chance begins to look like choreography. But here lies a hidden danger: to mistake the vision for the truth itself. Many seekers become enchanted by the images, by the psychic abilities that sometimes emerge, heightened intuition, prophetic dreams, even glimpses of possible futures. Yet the great teachers warned, these are side effects, not the goal. If the seeker clings to them, the third eye becomes a trap, inflating ego rather than dissolving it. Another paradox is that awakening the third eye often means confronting shadow as well as light. When the veil lifts, we do not only see the beauty of the cosmos, we also see the illusions we have lived under, the unconscious fears we've hidden, the manipulations that govern societies. This can be unsettling, even frightening. Ancient texts describe initiates going through a dark night of the soul, where everything familiar collapses before higher truth emerges. The third eye is a mirror, and it reveals not only the divine, but the distorted. To endure this confrontation requires courage and balance. Philosophically, the third eye also opens us to a radical truth. The self is not who we thought it was. When inner sight pierces beyond the surface, the illusion of separateness dissolves. The I that once seemed like an isolated entity is revealed as a wave within the infinite ocean of consciousness. Mystics describe this as both terrifying and liberating, the death of the ego, the rebirth of the soul. It is little wonder, then, that this knowledge was protected, hidden in symbols and allegories. An unprepared seeker might misuse it or crumble under its weight. For this reason, the ancients insisted on preparation, ethical discipline, meditation, service, and purification. Only when the vessel is strong can it hold the flood of vision. So, the third eye is not about escaping reality, but about seeing it whole. It reveals both the luminous and the shadowy, the infinite and the fragile. It is not a door to fantasy. It is a doorway into truth which can be both beautiful and unsettling. The question is not simply whether you can awaken it. The real question is, are you ready for what it shows? Because once you have seen through the eye of spirit, life can never be the same again. Ancient wisdom was never meant to remain locked away in temples or hidden behind cryptic symbols. It was always intended to be lived. The third eye is not just an abstract concept. It is a reality that can be cultivated through practice, patience, and alignment. But here lies the challenge. Awakening the third eye is not about forcing it open. It is about preparing yourself so that it opens naturally, like a flower responding to the sun. So how can we bring this mystical teaching into everyday life? The first step is awareness of thought. The third eye resonates with clarity, but most of our inner world is cluttered with noise, fears, judgments, distractions. Begin by simply observing your thoughts without attachment, like clouds drifting across the sky. This practice of silent witnessing strengthens inner vision, allowing you to perceive patterns beneath the chaos. Over time, you'll notice a shift. Intuition becomes sharper, synchronicities more frequent. The second practice is breath and stillness. In yoga and Taoist traditions, the breath is the bridge between body and spirit. A simple exercise. Close your eyes, focus gently on the space between your brows and breathe slowly. As you inhale, imagine drawing in golden light. As you exhale, release heaviness and tension. This daily ritual gradually awakens subtle energy pathways connected to the third eye, bringing calmness and heightened perception. Third, cultivate inner purity. The third eye does not thrive in a mind clouded by toxins, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual. Eating clean plant-based foods, limiting overstimulation, and practicing honesty with yourself all create clarity. Remember, this eye opens not to curiosity seekers, but to those aligned with truth. Another profound technique is visualization. Many traditions teach meditating on sacred symbols: the lotus, the triangle, the eye of Horus, or a glowing indigo light at the brow. These symbols are not arbitrary. They act as keys, tuning the mind into higher frequencies. Try spending just 10 minutes visualizing a radiant flame in your third eye, pulsing with energy. Notice how your awareness begins to shift. And finally, the most overlooked practice: living wisdom. The third eye is not only awakened in meditation, but in how we live daily life. Practice seeing beyond appearances. When someone speaks harshly, ask what pain lies behind their words. When challenges arise, look for the hidden lessons. This habit of seeing beneath the surface trains the third eye just as surely as meditation. Of course, obstacles will arise. Some may experience headaches, dizziness, or emotional turbulence as the energy shifts. This is why grounding is essential. Walk in nature, connect with the earth, and balance spiritual practice with practical life. The third eye must be balanced with the heart. Otherwise, clarity can turn cold, and vision can become detachment. Above all, remember this: the awakening of the third eye is not about escaping this world, but engaging with it more fully. You begin to see the divine spark in every person, the hidden order behind chaos, the timeless within the fleeting. Life itself becomes a living scripture. If you commit to even small steps, awareness, breath, purity, visualization, wisdom, you will begin to notice subtle shifts, a deeper calm, a stronger intuition, a sense that the universe is whispering to you, guiding you. These are not fantasies, they are the early signs of awakening, and with time, the eye of spirit opens not as a sudden explosion, but as a gentle dawn, a light that has always been there, waiting for you to see. The journey of the third eye is the journey of awakening from the dream of limitation. Across Egypt, India, Greece, and countless other traditions, seekers have spoken of this hidden eye, not as fantasy, but as the very organ of truth. To awaken it is to pierce the veil, to see the world as it truly is, alive, interconnected, and infused with divine intelligence. But let us be clear, awakening the third eye is not about escaping into visions or chasing mystical experiences. It is about transformation. It is about shifting from living as a prisoner of illusion to becoming a conscious co-creator of reality. It is about perceiving both the shadow and the light, and learning to walk the path of wisdom between them. The real meaning of the third eye is not hidden in temples or books. It is hidden in you, Every moment you choose awareness over distraction, clarity over confusion, truth over illusion, you are polishing the lens of your inner sight. And when the time comes, the eye opens not with force, but with grace. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you could see beyond appearances? If you could perceive not just the surface of events, but their hidden architecture? What if your intuition was no longer a whisper, but a guiding voice? What if you could look at yourself, not as a body bound by time, but as an eternal spark of consciousness? This is the invitation of the third eye. It does not promise ease, but it promises truth. And truth once seen changes everything. Perhaps the question is not whether the third eye is real, but whether you are ready to open it. Because once it awakens, you cannot return to blindness. You can only move forward, into deeper vision, greater responsibility, and a life lived in alignment with the infinite. If this message resonates with you, let it be the beginning of your own inner awakening. Share your reflections in the comments, join this journey with us, and never stop seeking the hidden truths that lie just beyond ordinary sight.